Hi guys, welcome back for day 2 of Sewing with Mama Lloyd. That's what I've decided to call these little segments, our little daily get-togethers. Today we're going to do a technique that a lot of you have been practicing at home. You just don't know it. It's called couching. Because I know a lot of you have just been laying around on the couch. Maybe you've had your laptop in your lap. But that's what couching is. It is laying fibers on top of fabric to create a different textile. Now I'm going to tell you, I've done a couple of samples already and discovered a couple of things that I'm going to tell you about first, and then I'll show you how the technique is done. One, it is always so important to iron your fabric before you start any project, whether that's a sewing like a garment project or a craft project. If you prepare your materials first, it will make putting it together easier and you'll have better results. Well, I dug in my treasure trove of stash for fabric, and I wanted to use denim because it has more body to it, except I discovered this one has stretch to it. It only stretched going across and not up and down, so I thought if I did the couching going down, it wouldn't be a problem, but it was. And I don't know if it's because this denim was lightweight or because it does have the Lycra in it, so it'll stretch. But my threads, and this is a really thick, heavy yarn. I made beanies out of it. It started to sink down into the fabric. And the whole thing with couching is your fibers, your decoration is supposed to be on top. Well, these were sinking in. So the one thing I did discover, though, I turned it over. This is the wrong side of the fabric, and I chose to do it on it because it had a lighter background, and I thought this might show up better. But I flipped it over, and it's this. Let's see, I'll get the light on it. So they pop up and make a really cool design on the right side of the fabric. So for those of you who aren't, maybe a glitzy or want colorful decoration on top of your fabric, but you like something that's really different and unique, you might try this. Do it on the back side, and then look at the design it makes on the front. So anyway, this is going to be couching. I do have a specialty foot that I use for this. It's got a big deep groove in the bottom, and that's going to let my yarn, go under it real smoothly. So after the one fabric didn't work too great, I went and got another piece of heavier denim out of my drawer and discovered it had interfacing on the back of it already. I have no idea what I was doing, why I would have done that. But putting interfacing on the back of a fabric stabilizes it so it won't stretch, it won't pull. And when you're doing a lot of decorative stitching on top, it can sometimes cause it to kind of shrink up a little bit, and we don't want it to do that. So I'm going to use this denim. It's got the interfacing, and I'm going to use this big heavy yarn, and I'm going to lay it under the foot, and I'm going to leave my yarn stick off the back just a little bit because my yarn's going to go up in that groove. Now I want to use a zigzag stitch. So on my machine, it's number 2. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that the swing of my needle goes over my yarn. I don't want it to smush the yarn down at this point. So I'm going to lengthen my stitch and my stitch width, my stitch length and my stitch width. So here's the super cool part about this foot is, like I said, it lets you sew over that yarn. I'm trying to get my thread out. There we go. But I don't have to really hold it because the way I push the foot, my yarn is going to go that direction. So You can see that the yarn is held down now, and it is just a zigzag stitch to go over that and hold it. One thing I got to playing around with, or when I was doing that sample, I didn't lengthen my stitch. I had to stop and think which one. And when I did this first one, where'd it go? See how heavy that zigzag was on there? Well, I lengthened my stitch, and so it spread those stitches out further. So again, with the couching, I can go just different directions, but it's allowing me to put this yarn on the top of my denim, and see, using the interfacing, it doesn't have that raised up effect. Always cut your threads and your extra little pieces off. Put them in a baggie and save them to make some fabric pizza. But I will show you, I did a sample with more. Okay, now my yarn is variegated, so as it goes along, my color changed. Okay, but then I came back and did another one, and I did some crossover on it. But what I wanted you to see is I decided to just play around with it, and I did decorative stitches. So this was the honeycomb stitch. So it has put a design all over my yarn, and I have to tell you, I really kind of like it. These were a couple of other decorative stitches that weren't as effective. This one that crosses over is just a zigzag, but I really did think this honeycomb was super cool, and gave it a whole different texture. Okay, so that's the yarn. Now I want to show you one other foot. And this is also to use for couching, but this is a cording foot. And can you see it's got a hole in the back side? Right there, okay? And that's so I can run my cord through it. And what I have here is, this is called, oh my gosh, what is it called? Rat tail. It is a satin cording. It does come in different thicknesses. So you can have a thick rat tail or a little skinnier one. Again, where do I come up with all of these things? Guys, when you've sewn as long as I have, oh, here's the thinner. I had two of the same ends. Okay, that's thinner. When you've sewn as long as I have, you tend to accumulate things. Now, with the rat tail, and I'm going to do a ribbon in a minute, you want to put it through the hole of the foot before you put your foot on. And now this isn't as wide, so I'm going to adjust my stitch width. I want it to go over my cord, but I don't want it to be so wide it moves around. Now if I want to, whoops, I got too close to the edge. I was going to say if I want to, I could swirl it back around. Okay, so that's a rat tail cord, just with my basic zigzag. I'm going to trim these off, and I'm going to show you one other. This is just a flat ribbon. And again, I need to take my foot off. And I discovered earlier, cut like a point in your ribbon. Not having real good luck here today. And that way, hopefully, you can get your point to feed through the hole and get a hold of it. And I've got my ribbon threaded through. Okay. Sorry, I know you can't see when I put the foot on, but more important is this. Now here's kind of the cool part. I'm going to switch this to a straight stitch. And the ribbon is wider than my hole, but as it goes through that hole, it turns it And doing this straight stitch flattens it out. It's really pretty cool. So see, that ribbon has now become this, and it's sewn on top. Again, these variegated pieces really make for some cool texture. And I was looking for my other sample. I'm just gonna do another one of this. And again, I just decided to do a straight stitch on this instead of doing the zigzag. Now here's the thing. How it feeds through that hole determines what it does. In this case, it was folding it in half. In this case, it's kind of left some texture to it. And so anything you do with that could be super cool. I mean, look, you could even make fringe and let it hang off the bottom. Or, bink, you could cut it off and have it nice and neat. So, your challenge is, what could you see yourself using couching on and not catching up with Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever else it is, Hulu, whatever you're watching? Think fashion. Think, how could I use couching? So, toodles for now. I will see you tomorrow. Well, at least maybe you'll see me. So check these out, guys. Bye.